man. Monday. Great show for Monday. I am Cy Kellett, your host. It is Catholic Answers Live, and we have, no exaggeration, 2 fantastic hours for you today. The wonderful Father Sebastian Walsh, second hour. We're going to talk about Mary a bit with Father Sebastian Walsh. And this hour, not just one of my favorite guests, one of my favorite people in the whole world is here, Rose Sweet. Rose has a brand new book, A Catholic Woman's Guide to Romance. It's part of her series for Tan Books. Rose is a very, very fine writer, and this is a particularly fine book, and we're going to talk about romance today. Does romance really matter? Rose is also kind of expert on all things having to do with divorce and remarriage and annulments and all those annulments, meaning Catholic annulments, that kind of thing. She created the widely used DVD series, The Catholic's Divorce Survival Guide. Rose, thanks for being with us.
I'm always happy to be here, and you're one of my very favorite people too.
What? Let's just all right. Well, this is going to be a good hour. Okay. Rose, let me tell you something. You are a charming and quirky person in person, yes. But it turns out you're a very charming and quirky person in print.
Did you actually read that book?
Yeah.
From cover to cover?
Yes, and this one...
I'm telling you.
Well, first of all, a lot of self-revelation in here. Like, you're pretty... But that's you, Rose.
It is me.
You don't hold back. You just
me.
tell it like it is. Because it always seems to me like you do that because you're trying to just give Jesus all the credit.
No, it's because if I put myself down first, then I don't have to worry about other people putting me down.
Oh,
right?
I'll still put you down,
okay,
Rose.
I know. Yeah, that's why I'm here every.
Yeah, but I mean
weeks.
Quirky in the best sense, like not like other people. I thought it was just a lively, wonderful read, and I'm going to tell you something weird.
Yeah.
As I'm reading it, I'm thinking, how could I get my 20-year-old son to read this? My 20-year-old son. Like that's who I think needs to read.
I know how to do it.
How?
Say, you know what? This is some stupid chick book, you know. And I'd like to get a guy your age. I get your opinion. What do you think about women reading this
stupid chick book?
Invite him to critique it, right? And once he opens it, he'll not be able to put it down.
Well, all right. So the topic for the hour is, does romance really matter? You're welcome to call 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. And so we talked this hour about romance for men and women. The book is called A Catholic Woman's Guide to Romance. I just delighted in it. I was so happy as I read it. But let me ask you this. What is romance? Maybe we should just start right there. What are we talking about?
Well, first of all, before we do that, do you mind? I brought a little show and tell piece here today.
Nothing works on radio like show and tell.
I know. So for those people who cannot see... Yeah. I brought one of these Magic Eye 3D picture books that were very popular in the 80s. And
before computers.
Yes. And
stuff to look at, yeah.
I saw these in the mall at a kiosk. They were for sale. And the kids were looking at these series of colored patterns on a poster, and it didn't make any sense. And all of a sudden, if you looked at it the right way, a 3D image would pop out. And I stood there for hours and days and weeks, and
you couldn't get it to do it?
I couldn't, but all the little kids could, and I was like, I was not happy.
The mall is closing and opening again, and closing, and Cinnabon is cooking, and then Cinnabon is cleaning.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, okay.
And one day, it was like, by God. And you know what I did?
What?
I actually went and asked for help.
Oh.
I went to the vendor, and I said, how are you supposed to look at this? I can't do it. So he said... Do you remember when you were little kids and you held your fingers together and you blurred your eyes and you had like a little floating finger would be in the middle?
Right. Oh, I remember that.
Right?
Yeah.
He goes, that's what you do. I go, okay. So I looked, and all of a sudden I saw this dinosaur, and I was like, I see.
You did it.
I see. And it was so exciting to me because I've always loved hidden mysteries, hidden pictures.
Yeah.
And that's what our faith is all about. Our Catholic faith is about not just looking at Scripture, but looking at it at such a way that something mysterious and even hidden is revealed. And we go, whoa. Right. And romance is one of those things. If we will look at romance, not just with the usual eyes that we do, oh yeah, 2 people, flowers and hearts and candy and champagne.
Right.
No. If you will look past that, something really awesome will emerge. And that's what I hope we can talk about today.
888-318-7884, the number 888-318-7884. I forgot to do this, Rose, so can you excuse me for a quick second? I got to say thanks to everybody in Tulsa, Oklahoma who came out on Friday. I cannot remember when I had a better time. It was just so much fun. You ever been to Tulsa? They're kind of on Tulsa time there.
No, but I love the Catholic Man Show.
Yeah, it's a really good show. But I was wondering about this too. Catholics are not really even almost like a minority in Oklahoma. Like it's like, I don't know, 4% or something.
Really?
Yeah. And so maybe that, I don't know, maybe that does something to their like, I don't know, it certainly seemed to bring out the best in them. So I wanted to say thanks to the guys from the Catholic Man Show and everybody there at St. Benedict's Parish in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. We're talking about romance today with Rose Sweet. Does romance really matter is the question, and you are welcome to call 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. Okay, so the thing is, it's called Catholic Answers, this program. So where is this romance thing in the Catholic faith or in Catholicism?
Okay, well, here's the thing. In the Catholic teachings, in the Catechism, in Scripture, in our tradition, all the answers that we need to all life's problems, including relationship problems, have a Catholic answer. That's what's so beautiful. That's what I love about apologetics. Is just not an intellectual exercise to prove your position. Right. It really is a doorway that if you go through, you can find the Catholic answers to anything that you're struggling with, anything that you want to know. It's there. It's hidden. You have to look for it and see with the right visions. And that's what you guys do here, is to try to help people see into the teachings, the Catholic answers. So romance, here's how I define it. And you could define it a million ways. I think it's the experience of, or the expression of, love through beauty.
Wow.
Beautiful things, beautiful words, beautiful gestures, beautiful actions.
Wow. So that gives me a different view on the liturgy then.
Well, you're jumping ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I don't know.
Okay.
It's hard. That was undisciplined of me.
No, it's okay.
But
we forgive you. That's okay.
Do
that's
beautiful things to express love.
That's right. So okay. So let's jump there. That's why we have flowers on the altar and incense that smells good and beautiful linens and robes and golden chalices, because the church has taught for thousands of years that God has four main attributes. He's one, he's good, he's truth, and he's beauty. So, and God is love. And a lot of people are drawn to God through the truth, through the intellectual side. Right. A lot of people are drawn to God through goodness. A lot of people are drawn to God through beauty. And romance seems to be one doorway that really capitalizes on beauty, the beauty of the world, beautiful music.
Right.
What did you do to court your wife?
It was mostly begging and crying.
Oh, God, I knew
was that not good? Was that
I should have practiced this ahead of time.
Yeah, maybe you should have let me prepare a little bit.
No,
but
come on. I'm sure you did something with beautiful words, beautiful actions, or beautiful things.
Yeah, it's mostly words in my case.
Okay.
Because I like to write and I like to talk. So
okay, so what you were doing is you're drawing her into love. You're inviting her into a holy communion, into a relationship, an intimate, loving relationship through beauty, something that's beautiful. And the sad thing is, romance gets a bad rap sometimes. Because what do we reduce romance to?
Well, like the romantic comedy. I mean, the romance, the movie type of romance becomes sex really quick. So.
Right. It's a way to get people into bed.
Yeah.
And the church has always taught it's a way to get people into a loving relationship. Okay, so here, let's go deep. You want to go deeper?
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of the liturgy. So if a little boy, did you ever give your mom a flower when you were a little boy?
Yes.
Do you remember it at all?
I know that it happened. I couldn't give you any details.
Okay, so a little boy picking a flower to give to his mother, he is acting as a gift. He wants to invite her into a union of hearts, right? He wanted to be in love with her and exchange love and be one with her on that level.
Right.
And he used a beautiful flower to entice her into that, right?
Right.
Okay, that is the same thing as, and in a microscopic level as Jesus giving his body on the cross to his bride.
Right.
So little gestures of romance are meant to point to the big grand gesture of romance of Jesus Christ, the bridegroom, giving his life for his bride so that she could live and he could take her home and live happily ever after with her.
Yeah.
Our whole faith is romance. And we're not reducing it down to something earthly. We're trying to lift up our earthly understanding of romance to the cosmos, to eternity.
To give it right. It has a cosmic. I mean, Jesus himself chose the image of marriage for what this Christian thing is.
And we know that ultimately romance should lead to some kind of marriage.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be man and woman. You know, we know that in our world there's a marriage of hearts, a marriage of wills, a marriage of business partners. A marriage means a mutual, loving, beneficial, self-giving union. Right?
Yes.
So this is central to our faith. This is not just romantic comedy fluff stuff.
Well, we got to take a break, but when we come back, I got to ask you about this because you could have a very wholesome, maybe you've studied Pope John Paul II's theology of the body, or, you've read what the church teaches, or you've prepared yourself for romance. The world is not preparing other people for that, however. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that dilemma of being ready and the world churning out, but very few who are prepared for chaste and genuine love.
And that's what Catholic Answers, you and I work together to help prepare people for the stuff that really matters.
888-318-7884, the number. Your call's coming up right after this. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Does Romance Really Matter? With Rose Sweet on Catholic Answers Live.
Hi, this is Bishop James Wall from the Diocese of Gallup, New Mexico. Keep it right here on Catholic Answers Live.
Do you want to end abortion, halt the attack on traditional marriage, and ensure religious freedom for ourselves and for our grandchildren? To do this, we must convert the culture. St. Paul Street Evangelization is a grassroots initiative that recognizes this need and takes it to the streets. If you're interested in peacefully sharing the gospel in your area, visit streetevangelization.com to learn more.
The leading Catholic voices are on EWTN Radio.
The Church has 2,000 years of wisdom to share on what it takes to live life gracefully.
We're so overwhelmed by how much our faith has transformed our marriage and family especially. We want everyone to experience the incredible gift that the Catholic vision of life and love really is.
More to Life with Dr. Greg and Lisa Popchak. Tomorrow morning, 10 Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Rose Sweet is our guest. We're talking romance. Does romance really matter? I'm starting to feel like the answer is yes. Rose's latest book is for Tan Books, A Catholic Woman's Guide to Romance. I enjoyed reading it so much, I wanted to give it to my 20-year-old son. I thought, that'll give him, I don't know, it gives you a wholesome, full picture of romance, but not in a, I got to say, Rose, you don't write in a treacly or overly pious way. You write in a way that's more like genuine.
Oh, that's good, because I never wanted to be a church lady.
You are a church
lady. I am not. Hey, you know what I found out? St.
What?
Rose of Lima, who we just celebrated her feast day this last week, right? She's the patroness of those who are ridiculed for their piety.
Really?
Ridiculed and misunderstood for their piety. Yeah, I love that, because a lot of us who have really discovered the beauty and fullness of our faith.
People roll their eyes at you.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Right.
Her again.
Here she comes.
Yeah,
Right.
You know what they should do? People who need to become closer to Jesus should just go to the land where he walked.
Hey, wait.
Oh, that was a segue.
That really was. Guess what?
Yes,
I am
Rose.
leading a pilgrimage to the Holy Land.
I had no idea.
Listen to this.
Yes.
We are going to be in Cana, the first miracle, wedding feast, romance. We're going to be in Cana on Valentine's Day.
I think that is wonderful. That is so cool.
So we would really love everybody out there who can join us. And our co-leader is Monsignor Morris, who's going to be on Catholic Answers here Friday this week.
Right, and he's coming to our conference. And
what a dynamo priest he is. He's smart, he's funny, and a little bit sassy.
Much like yourself, Rose. And then I heard your third leader is also one of these.
Elizabeth S. Westhoff.
Yeah.
She is Cardinal Burke's press secretary.
Yeah.
And she was with the Archdiocese of St. Louis. And she's
a kick, I heard.
Oh, she's a huge kick. She's smart, funny. You guys are going to have so much. I know there's the holy spiritual benefits of the pilgrimage.
Right.
But it's also going to be a lot of fun.
So how do people just go to rosesweet.com, or where do they go to find out?
rosesweet.com.
Rosesweet.com.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we got calls for you, Rose.
Okay,
We're talking
good.
romance.
Okay.
Can you help me, Darren? I don't have the stack up. Jay in Melbourne, Florida, listening on WDMC. You are first, Jay. Your question for Rose.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Question I have is related to romance long after the marriage started and is trucking along, and you degenerate into basically being roommates. And you try flowers, cards, and it's like thanks in 10 seconds it's over with. Is there something I could do to help stimulate that? And we're not both Catholics, so does it matter from your book's perspective? I got one of the books and said, here, I read this, what do you think?
Wow, this is a great question, and I think a lot of people listening have been in this similar situation. No, you don't have to be Catholic, because the desire for love and this holy communion between spouses is a universal desire that God put in our hearts. So here's my understanding, and being a woman, after a long time when the cards and the candy and the flowers are like thanks, and then you go in the room and watch TV, there's something else going on there. And either the spouse doesn't want to share it, or isn't aware of it, or doesn't want to do the work to get to the root of it. But that's when you want to be tender and patient and say, hey, I want to have a connection with you again, but I want to know what you want. And maybe she'll say, well, flowers are fine, or I don't like candy, or whatever, but there might be something even deeper. She may have gained weight and feels ugly. She may be resentful that you're not making as much money as she thought 13 years ago, but she doesn't ever want to really tell you the truth of that. I mean, I don't know. We're such complex beings, and it takes a lot of work to bring that stuff out. But I would definitely sit her down and say, I love you, and I want to love you the way you want to be loved. And I need your help. Let's talk. And if she can't talk or she has troubles, I would definitely look for a good therapist to maybe help you with that. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate that call.
Okay. Look at that.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. I mean, he took it. He got it. Hopefully he's going to go off and work on it.
Yeah. Well, that's what I don't know how women are. I really, but I do know that men are like, what do I got to do?
Okay, you know what?
Give me a project.
A lot of women are like that too.
Are they too?
I have a natural masculine temperament, and it's just like, tell me what to do and I'll do it. Let's move on to the next thing. So, yeah.
I do think, I don't know how you feel about it, but you were trying to get him to the point of what's the deeper thing going on. But people go through depressions, and that can take a long time. But you want to be diagnosed with that. You want to get care. Maybe like if you go to therapy for a little while. I don't know if some people have an allergy to going to a therapist or what. I mean, I know you got to find somebody who's open to your Catholic faith, but sometimes the deeper thing is not a spiritual problem. It's a medical or physical problem.
Or maybe a combination. And let's go there. There are a lot of good Catholic therapists around the country now who are professional, they're educated in their faith, and they are personally living their faith out.
Yeah.
And they can do work over the telephone or by Skype. So it's not hard to find nowadays a good Catholic therapist to help with that. Or a good Christian therapist, if, like Jay said, they weren't Catholic.
Oh, I misunderstood that. I thought one wasn't. I thought he meant.
Or maybe I misunderstood it.
No,
Okay.
Well, Jay, Tan Books is where you get it. It's called A Catholic Woman's Guide to Romance. I wouldn't give it to my wife. I'd just lie in bed reading it. See what happens.
Oh, yeah, right.
888-318-7884 is the number. 888-318-7884. Luca in Cambridge, Massachusetts, listening to EWTN on Sirius XM Satellite Radio, Channel 130. You are up next, Luca. Your question for Rose.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I was wondering how you would counsel someone who feels a strong compulsion to experience God's gift of romance, but who exclusively experiences same-sex desire or same-sex attraction.
You know, I talk about this in my book, Luca, and don't let the title, A Catholic Woman's Guide to Romance, fool you. It's really a universal, it's a good book. Women buy most of these books, and that's why the publisher wanted that title on there.
Women buy most of all books.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Okay, so Luca, back to, let's expand the definition of romance, and that's what I try to do in this book. It's not just based on sexual attraction, and it's not just a motivation to come together sexually. Romance is so much bigger than that. It is the grandfather who takes his little granddaughter out for an ice cream sundae and buys her a flower. It's the little boy who gives his mommy a flower. It is two girlfriends who go out for a glass of wine and look out over the ocean and are united in their appreciation of beauty, of beautiful things. And it's romantic in a much broader sense. So, Luca, you were made for romance. That means you were made to be drawn into love through beauty. But you were not made to use romance as a way to get into an illicit sexual relationship. So there's a difference. And me, as a straight woman, or whatever you call it nowadays, I'm not supposed to use romance either to entice some man into my arms or into my affections. That is sinful. And it's...
Did you mention that you're married?
Yeah, I did mention that I'm married.
Okay, because I didn't know.
Sorry, honey, Bob.
Yeah.
I think Bob is too busy to listen today.
I just thought that would be a weird thing if you didn't mention that you were married. But yeah.
Okay, thank you for helping me with that.
Okay.
But here's the thing. We have to remember that no matter your sexual orientation, love, which is what we all want and which is what romance is supposed to draw us into, love never uses the other person to feel good or to have security or purpose or, you know, I dated a guy once a long time ago. He was so romantic. He'd open the door and he brought flowers and did all that. He didn't even really notice me as a person, though.
Oh, he was so gallant that he was into his own.
Yes, he was into the whole role of romanticism for its own sake and the pleasure that it gave him. Mm-hmm. That's a disorder of what romance is supposed to be. So, Luca, yes, you were made for romance, to appreciate it and enjoy it and let it lead you higher, but not to be used for illicit sexual or romantic, emotional relationships.
Luca, what do you make of that?
Yeah, that helps. I guess it's true that so often we think of romance as, being sexualized, but it obviously has different meanings as well, so that's good.
Right, and the sexual part, the erotic part of romance is just one tiny dimension. And we get stuck. We're looking down all the time at this one little part of it because it's so exciting and feels good. And we forget to look up. And like I did with my Magic Eye picture book that I used earlier, we don't look deeper and see the mystery, the beautiful, expanded version of romance that God has for us.
Luca, thanks. Call anytime. Again, our number here, 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. We're talking romance with Rose Sweet. Rose often gets the tough assignment when we do a show about annulments or a show about infidelity or divorce or something like that. And we're delighted to have you here to talk in such positive terms about romance. One of the things throughout the book is these little quotes that you have from people at the top of each chapter. It's there. First of all, had you collected these over the years, or did you have to go find these? Because they're wonderful. They're from popes and saints and
movie stars.
Yeah, well,
I think there's one from the Wizard of Oz in there too.
Yeah,
or
right,
something like that.
Yeah. So what'd you do?
Well, no, I love quotes. You know, when I see pithy little sayings from anywhere, they resonate, and I want to hang on to that. So that's what I do.
I feel really dumb. I understood all of them except the Shakespeare one. I'm still working on the Shakespeare one.
Okay, which one is that?
I'll show it to you, and you can help me out at the break. The book is A Catholic Woman's Guide to Romance. You can get it from Tan Books, and you should get it from Tan Books. And I know it's a good book because it has a blurb on it from Debbie Georgianni, one of the hosts of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
I love Debbie Georgianni.
I do too. I'm really glad you could find a Catholic media personality to blurb your book.
Oh, shut up.
No, congratulations on that you found someone in Catholic media to blurb your book.
What? What are you talking about? It's a time for a break now, folks.
We'll be right back with more with Rose Sweet. 888-31-TRUTH, the number.
Every question is important. Ask yours today on Catholic Answers Live.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
Jesus asked his disciples, "Who do you say that I am?" Turns out that today, as back then, this question has a lot of different answers. So many groups want to appropriate Jesus, tweaking his identity until he looks and sounds just like one of them. But then you no longer have the Lord, says apologist Trent Horn. You have an imposter. In his new groundbreaking book, Counterfeit Christ, Trent exposes 18 phony versions of Jesus that we encounter today, helping you to recognize the fakes when you see them, explain why they're phony, and make a case for the full truth and beauty of who Jesus is, the Christ, the Son of the living God. Order your copy of Counterfeit Christ today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Love and beauty. As a little girl, Dawn Eden Goldstein knew that she wanted those things, that in them somehow she would find God. Over the years as a rock journalist, she moved among some of popular music's best-known artists, straining to capture that transcendent love and beauty in every note and lyric. In Sunday Will Never Be the Same, Dawn recounts her spiritual journey in beautifully wrought detail, mixing powerful accounts of trauma, healing, and epiphany with funny anecdotes from inside the music scene. It is the rare conversion story that delights as it inspires, amuses as it edifies, and ultimately lays before the reader a lived testimony to the transforming grace of Christ. Order your copy of Sunday Will Never Be the Same by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Hi, this is Dr. David Anders. What's stopping you from becoming a Catholic? Let's talk about it on Call to Communion tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio. Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Does romance really matter? Is there a Catholic angle on this romance thing? Our guest is Rose Sweet. Rose's latest book is from Tan Books, A Catholic Woman's Guide to Romance. And I have to say, I do indeed highly recommend it. I think you'll just be delighted by the book. It's delightful. That's probably why you'll be delighted by it.
And it's short.
Yeah, that's another of its virtues.
And it's easy to read.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Books are like people. The shorter they are, the better. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense. I don't even know why I said that.
I do not know either, weird. But here we are.
888-318-7. Well, babies are short, and that's like as good as you can be as a baby, right?
You know what? Stop digging. You're going deeper and deeper. Just change the subject.
888-318-7884 is the number. As I said, we're talking romance, and we go now to Griffin in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, listening on the Catholic Answers Live app. Griffin, your question for Rose.
Hi, yeah, so my question has to do with sort of how, like, through suffering we're supposed to come, like, closer to Christ, and I'm wondering how that relates to romance and that sort of thing, and because it just seems a bit tough to overcome, because, I mean, even in the Hail Holy Queen, up to you do we send our sighs, mourning and weeping in the valley of tears, and I guess my question is, where's the romance in sort of that relationship?
Great question.
That's a wonderful question. Okay, so think of any romantic novel or movie that you've seen, and There's always the lovers who are drawn together, but then there's a force of evil or something that pulls them apart, and their longing for each other is frustrated. And they have to suffer. Maybe one suffers terribly to get back to the other one, or somebody gives his or her life to save the other one. That is the ultimate pinnacle where romance is supposed to lead us. Jesus, who loves his bride so tenderly and so perfectly, he goes to the cross and he takes whips and nails for her so he can save her from the clutches of evil and bring her home. How romantic is that? And I don't mean to downplay Christ's death, but and then when the lovers come together, usually in a good romance story, they work together side by side, and she is willing to suffer with him for the greater good, maybe for their children, maybe for the country. And that romance, that call to intimate communion, means that they share in each other's sufferings. I have a story in the book about my brother, Charlie, when he was a little boy. Mom was planting rose bushes, and he wanted to help her. He loved my mom, and he wanted to be a little man like Dad. And so he went over to pick up a rose bush. He's 4, right? And he picks it up, and all the thorns are poking him in his little chest. And like, he told me this as an adult later. He was like, "Oh, God, this hurts, but I have to bring these roses to my mother, who I love." Oh. And he remembers the sense of suffering and sacrifice out of love for Mother.
Yeah.
That there's nothing more romantic than that.
Griffin, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, no, thank you. I really appreciate that.
I do feel like Griffin makes a good point too in that people think that nowadays, maybe it's always been this way, I don't know, that as soon as a relationship involves suffering, maybe the suffering of being lonely within the relationship, or it just hasn't been going well for the last, decade or so, that somehow that's that the romance, we say the romance has gone out, but not leaving is a very important part of romance.
Well, exactly, because as we talked about earlier, romance is ultimately to draw two people into a permanent bond of love, because that's what God calls us into, a permanent bond, unbreakable bond of love. And that's how the church sees marriage. And there are days, we all know, when your spouse not only is not romantic, he or she is very irritating, but the bond of love remains. So the expression of love through beautiful things and beautiful gestures may come and go. But all those beautiful gestures were to create that bond. So when the gestures are out in there, they haven't been around for 13 years, as one of our callers said, it doesn't mean the bond isn't still there and can be rekindled. We need help. We need Catholic answers to resolve that problem.
Yeah, and we need, and some encouragement that just because it gets apparently unbearable at times. Now, I'm not talking about an abusive relationship or something like that, but that relationships become very, very difficult. That's where the romance of Christ on the cross is very, very helpful to us as a pointer, like take up your cross and follow, because relationships go through death, not just bad times, but death in a way, but life comes back. That's the promise that he's made us.
Right, exactly. And that's where romance is tried and tested and true in the suffering and in the dry times. And we look at all the lives of the saints who talk about the dark night of the soul and the dry times, and Mother Teresa, who could never sense the presence of God, but she knew intellectually he was there, and that bond was there. So love and romance go together, and romance can ebb and flow, but it's love that remains. And that's what our faith is all about.
That sounds like the Bible. 888-318-7884, the number. Thanks very, very much for that call, Griffin. We go now to Jason, also listening to EWTN on Sirius XM Satellite Radio Channel 130. Jason's in Florida. Jason, your question for Rose.
Hey, Rose. Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Jason.
First time, long time to the show. Hey, really amazing subject. I was wondering, a lot of times I'm recently converted 3 years in to Catholicism, and I lived my life Thank you. I lived my life previously a little Augustinian. So I have slightly different experiences going into what love and intimacy, etc., can bring in a relationship and in my marriage. So I was wondering if you could briefly outline your thoughts on really where the border lies between lust and love and romance, so that, because culture is so upside down now, and the way that it's dictating and teaching us what love and romance is obviously completely different than biblically and scriptural. So I was wondering if you could outline really your thoughts on lust versus love, where that line is, so that we can romantically love our marriage in Christ in a healthy way. And I'll listen. Thank you so much.
Jason, are you married?
I am. 5 years now.
Your wife is very blessed, because the fact that you even desire to know these things shows where your heart is, and that quickens the heart of a woman. And that, your question was very romantic. So here it is in a nutshell, and this is right out of our Catholic teachings, Catholic answers. Romance is the invitation into love through beauty. Love is the highest regard for the other person and wanting the very best for them and being willing to die and suffer so that they can have the very best. Lust is using another person. And it can be benevolent. It looks benevolent from the outside, but in other words, I'm dating this guy. I don't really have feelings for him, but I get dinners and I get jewelry and I get flowers and I'm trying to like him, but actually what I'm doing is using him because I like the romantic gestures that I'm benefiting from. Mm-hmm. And that's not love at all. That's lust, and it's using somebody. So romance is drawing invitation to love through beauty. Love is willing the very best for the other person, which we know is heaven, and never using them. And lust is, you got something I want, hand it over, and I'll give you what you want so that I get what I want. That's it in a nutshell. Do you have any argument with that?
I don't. No, I was struck by, in the book, you use the word lust in a much broader sense than we usually we think of lust as just like intense sexual feelings or something. Right. But that's not what you use the word lust again right now. You mean something more by lusting. You
make a lot of money and I want financial security and I'm lusting after that. Mm-hmm. You guys have a lot of kids. My sister has a lot of kids and I want babies. I'm lusting after a child. Mm-hmm. So lust is seeing something, an object of our desire, but then we have an inordinate attachment and desire for that thing to the point where we'll use other people to get it, even though it's a good. And again, I didn't invent this stuff. This is Catholic teaching for centuries. Right. This is a Catholic answer to the dilemma of disordered relationships.
Jason, what do you make of all that?
I mean, it's brilliant, and I appreciate that explanation. It helps me personally as a Catholic man, a husband and a father. And it's important that I think we realize that, like you said, use of another individual, and then we become sinful and start to idolize other things besides our Father first, our relationship with Christ, and then our vocation, which includes our family. So in that order, in that methodology, brilliant. I really appreciate you taking that question. And I think it's important for married Catholic men to understand that difference and to look into romance in its true definition, refer to books of Genesis, and realize how romantic the relationship between Adam and Eve was of recognition, and just how much he wants us to be able to love and to reach that elevation through marriage and a sacrament. So amazing. I appreciate you guys. Thank you, and God bless.
You're amazing, Jason.
Yes, Jason. Thank you very, very much for that. Really appreciate both the question and the comments, Jason. Thank you. 888-318-7884 is the number here. 888-318-7884. Hey, look who's here. Your friend, Erica.
I can't wait because Erica...
She's my friend, too.
But when I see Erica, I think conference.
The conference is coming.
It's coming. It's a month away today. Today's the 26th.
1 month until the Catholic Answers National Conference.
Today.
The theme being the early church was the Catholic Church.
We're going to have so many great speakers.
Well, for one of them is Monsignor Morris, who's also doing
he's doing a pilgrimage with you.
With Rose,
He is such an amazing speaker.
Isn't he wonderful?
I know that our listeners are probably so tired of us pitching him because we're just like, you have to come to listen to him. If he was the only person giving a talk,
well, he's a combination of he's the real deal and he's a hoot. Like that,
That's true.
He really gets you on both levels. So
he's so great. And we have Father David McConey coming.
Another great
Rod
one.
Bennett. Father Paul Check is coming.
Is Rod Bennett bringing his Southern accent?
I hope so.
Okay, good, because that's very smooth.
I know.
That Southern accent.
I really
he's got.
hope so.
Bishop Frank Caggiano is going to be the keynote speaker.
If you buy the full conference ticket that includes the dinner banquet, he's giving our keynote address at the dinner banquet. We have a ton of great activities. Jimmy Akin's calling square dancing.
Yay!
We have all of our speakers.
Did
all
you
of
do the
our
square
guys
dancing
are going
last
to
year,
be there.
Rose?
No, I was in the cocktail lounge.
Well, you didn't have to say that.
Hey, you know what? We have Catholics of every kind coming.
That's what's so fun about the conference.
Yes, there's something for everyone to do. We have cocktail hour upstairs if you want to go have a drink with your fellow Catholics. We have square dancing going on
My wife couldn't find me,
downstairs.
so she grabbed Margot. They were square dancing
If you're
together.
staying, we can go to have a pool party if you're staying at the hotel. There's lots of activities to do with all your new friends that you meet at the conference.
And shopping, don't forget that.
Oh my gosh, there's such good shopping. We have 30 or so vendors signed up to come, and we have t-shirt companies coming, rosary companies coming, book companies coming. There's so much great shopping to do. What else can I tell you?
Eating and all the
I feel like you're missing the 2 days in a row of Catholic Answers Live broadcasting from there, where you get to ask your question.
That too.
Roast
Cy Kellett will be there, everyone.
I feel like that just
come on.
Hyatt Regency La Jolla, beautiful and sunny San Diego. When my feelings are hurt, I just move on. September 26th through the 29th, exactly 1 month from today.
And everybody who comes
gets a Cy cookie.
Gets
I
a
forgot.
Cy Kellett
I love
cookie.
those cookies.
Yeah, Cy Kellett cookie.
You haven't even seen the cookie. Where do you have the picture?
I don't have
of
the
you
picture
don't have
with
it
me
anymore?
right now. No.
It's literally a cookie stamp.
They made it look
They
like me too. It's
they
weird.
made like a cartoon doodle of Cy Kellett, and they like stamp the cookie.
Oh god!
It literally like looks like him.
Yeah.
It's uncanny.
Freaky. And
how much
it's
this
ironic
cookie looks
because
like
of
him.
the sheer number of cookies I've eaten in my life. I feel like you are what you eat.
We have to get a
This is
picture of
weird.
you like eating your face.
Okay, CatholicAnswersConference.com.
Remember, we were accused of being cannibals back in the early church, right?
Right.
There you go.
It all ties
Does the cookie
in.
count?
I don't know if it does all tie in, but the Catholic Church, the early church was the Catholic Church.
That's
That's
right.
the important thing. CatholicAnswersConference.com. Go to CatholicAnswersConference.com, and when you see Monsignor Eugene Morris, you're going to say, "Oh man, I want to go on pilgrimage with him and Rose," and then you can find out all about that at RoseSuite.com. We'll be right back.
Catholic Answers Live. The only thing missing from today's broadcast is you. Call now with your question.
The Aquinas Writing Advantage program is part of Homeschool Connections' set of online courses for your Catholic homeschool. Homeschool Connections' website is homeschoolconnections.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
EWTN, helping people grow in their love and understanding of God.
I just want to share that 5 years ago, my lovely warrior princess and saint of a wife and I decided to adopt a little girl through foster care. She is the perfect round out of our family of 3 boys and her. Yes, there are challenges. Very grateful today for all the blessings that he has shown our family.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Father Sebastian Walsh, second hour. We're going to talk about devotion to Mary. And Mary is a sometimes controversial figure among Christians. I wonder if it was always thus. I don't think that it always was thus, but we'll talk with Father about Mary and about what we mean by devotion to Mary. And you can ask him your questions. He is a wonderful Norbertine priest, a what do you call it when they're in the same community? He and Father Hugh Barber are in the same community, St. Michael Abbey. They're confreres.
Right.
They're fathers
right,
together.
Right.
Yeah.
Brothers. Frere means brother.
Oh, brothers together.
Yeah.
Oh.
Brothers together.
Yeah, that's right. Frere Jacques.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, exactly.
My French is... Oh, how do I even say my French? I don't have any French. 888-318-7884, the number. We're talking romance with Rose Sweet, and she is the person to talk about it with. Does romance really matter? Rose's latest book is A Catholic Woman's Guide to Romance. It's from Tan Books. It has a blurb from Debbie Georgiani, and it deserves it. It's a wonderful book. I hope you'll get it. Let's go to Carolyn, listening to EWTN on Sirius XM Satellite Radio, Channel 130. Carolyn, your question for Rose Sweet.
Hi, Rose.
Hi, Carolyn.
My question is, I am dating a gentleman. I'm in my 50s, and he's a wonderful guy. He even just recently became Catholic, and everything's great about him, no problems, except I just don't know if I have the physical attraction to him and everything like that. And people say, well, it doesn't matter when you're over 50 anyway. And
wait a second. Who says that?
No,
It's nobody over
That's
50
a
who
lie.
says that.
That's
I can tell
a
you
lie.
that. It's because some of these young whippersnappers whipping that out. All right. So your question then?
So my spouse that I divorced, I was madly in love with. Every time he kissed me, I saw fireworks, and I miss him. And the reason we got divorced was that he was an alcoholic, and he was not very nice. And, you know, I find myself, the more I'm with this guy, as sweet and kind and wonderful he is, I don't have that spark. And then I start thinking about my former husband, wishing that we could get back together, because it was, there was so much passion and romance. It was wonderful, that part of it. And so I'm all confused now. Everyone's like, this is a great guy, and it doesn't matter if you don't have the romantic feelings. And I'm like, but I need that. I need to feel physically attracted. I mean, they don't have to be perfect, but
yeah, that seems like a fair
I have
question.
to have that.
All right, Rose.
Oh, okay. First of all, stop going, Carolyn, to everybody and getting their opinion. That's the first thing. I used to do that, and you said you were confused. You're going to be confused because everybody has a different. Let's go to a Catholic answer. Are you looking for marriage?
Yes.
Okay. Marriage is a unique relationship. And in Scripture, we see marriage as a deep desire by God for us. We see in the Song of Songs a deep desire for the bridegroom for his bride and she for him. The desire and this erotic longing is part of the marital bond, okay? It's not the whole marital bond, and certainly the marital bond can exist without it, as we know in times when we don't feel it. But it's very important that that be there. And so I would definitely, I don't know the particulars, but I would say give it time. But also remember that you can really like somebody and they can be really nice and you like being with them, but they're not appropriate for you for marriage. I feel that way about my brother Joe. I love my brother Joe. I love him.
Who doesn't?
I love spending time with
Oh, I don't know your brother Joe. Sorry.
I love spending time with him. He's funny, but I'm not going to marry him. So remember that marriage is a unique relationship, and look up what the Catechism of the Catholic Church has to say about marriage. I have this little note here, Catechism section 1643. The goods and requirements of conjugal love. Conjugal love, and that means when there's a sexual and erotic part of the relationship, involves a totality in which all the elements of the person enter. It aims at a deeply personal unity that, beyond union in one flesh, beyond just sex, it leads to forming one heart and soul. So we have to be careful in our 50s or 60s or beyond that we're not out of loneliness and pressure from our friends entering into another marriage of somebody who's really nice, but we're not ready to give ourselves totally, and we don't want to. We're not that attracted to them. So, bottom line, because we're running out of time, get some good spiritual direction on this. Don't listen to all your friends.
Carolyn, I hope that's helpful. We are running out of time, so I am going to keep moving. We'll go to Kristen in Fort Wayne, Indiana, listening on Redeemer Radio. Kristen, your question for Rose Sweet.
Hi. I have a quick question. So you're talking about being lustful after, other ideas like children, that kind of stuff. I'm single. I have a really deep desire to be in a relationship, and I see the difference between selfish, motivations and selfless motivations. But somewhere down in that deep desire, I just wondered if you could speak to, the question of lusting after a relationship versus that deep desire that's really just innate. Can you speak to that?
Rose, it can speak to that.
Yes,
I know she can, yeah.
Yes, Kristen, I definitely do. You have a deep, deep longing to be in a holy communion with another, and that's in all of our hearts. We go to different places to find it. We mess it up. We do it right. It's very normal and natural, and you're not selfish to desire that. But ultimately, and this is what our church teaches, this is our Catholic answer, that all of our relationships will fade away in a certain sense when we are before God, and he says, where was I in this desire list? Was I number one? So take that ache that is yet unsatisfied and unite it with the ache that Christ feels for us on the cross and the desire that God has for us. I know it sounds over-spiritualized, but we can't ignore that part of it. It's not wrong to long for that. It's only lust when you start to lose your serenity and you start to feel resentful, scared, uneasy, and you settle for something less or you use somebody. That's because now the thing you got to have this good that you desire, and it's a good. You want it so badly, you're willing to do all kinds of things to get it.
Jamie, how's that?
Kristen.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kristen. I apologize. I apologize. That was rude.
It's okay.
But that made sense to you?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kristen. Jamie is next. So I apologize to you too as well, Jamie. Jamie in Texas, your question for Rose.
Hi. So I had been divorced for almost 12 years. I put up for annulment and it was negative. But I find myself reminiscing on the intimacy with my ex-husband. I have this deep desire for his conversion, but my confessor tells me that I need to move on, that I need to let go. Of course, I can't get married. I am married to him. And so I don't know if it's lust, or if it's romance, or I'm thinking I need to reapply for annulment. I'm not sure.
Okay, Jamie, those are important questions. And of course, we don't have enough information to specifically address your particular marital standing. But if you don't have an annulment in the eyes of the church, you are still considered married to your spouse, even though you're not living together. And if for whatever reason you can't be together as husband and wife, and you ache for that intimacy, and you ache for things to be good, unite that ache with the ache that Christ has for us. It's a suffering that you're carrying right now, right? It's not necessarily lust.
Mm-hmm.
It's a deep desire for a good that is not able to be realized. And there is, in that.
Is it bad to live with it?
Is it bad to what?
My confessor seems to live with that. My confessor seems to want to push me to move on. But I mean, there's no farther that I can move on.
Okay.
I'm married.
Okay, you're married in the eyes of the church. There may be circumstances where you can't come back together in conjugal life. I don't know. And maybe that's what he's talking about. If you want more, send me an email, rose@rosesweet.com, and I'll see if I can help.
Rose@rosesweet.com. Sorry, we ran up against the end there, Jamie. Appreciate that question. Don't forget that Rose and Father Monsignor Morris will be leading a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, in which you'll be in Cana, in the place where Jesus changed the water into wine at the marriage feast on Valentine's Day. You go to rosesweet.com to get all the information. Rose, as always, just wonderful. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Cy.
Up next, Father Sebastian Walsh. And don't forget Rose's book, A Catholic Woman's Guide to Romance from Tan Books.
This is Dale Ahlquist of the American Chesterton Society, and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Have you subscribed to the Catholic Answers Radio Club newsletter? This is Catholic Answers Live host Cy Kellett, and I want to tell you about our new weekly newsletter full of behind-the-scenes information and facts you need to know about the show. It's easy to sign up. Just visit CatholicAnswersLive.com and look for the newsletter sign-up box on the front of the page. It's a great way to keep up to date with what's happening with the show and see what's coming in the days ahead, delivered weekly into your inbox. Sign up today for the Catholic Answers Radio Club newsletter and see what you've been missing. Go to CatholicAnswersLive.com.
Author Mark McNeil spent years in the Oneness Pentecostal movement, praying in its lively services, zealously spreading its unconventional teachings, and rejecting mainstream Christianity as misguided. Then he left it all behind. All in the Name is the story of a man who believed he was among an elite group of believers who followed the true faith when so many others had strayed. But an inquisitive mind, careful study, and the action of the Holy Spirit finally led Mark out of Oneness Pentecostalism and into the Catholic Church. This is an inspiring conversion story you won't want to miss. It's a faith strengthener for Catholics and an intriguing challenge to those who deny the doctrine of the Trinity. Order your copy of All in the Name today by calling 1-888-291-8000, logging on to the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Sharing the gospel with family and friends can be challenging. It's especially hard when they won't even hear you out because of all the mental roadblocks they've built up. This is Carlo Broussard, and in my new book, Prepare the Way, my aim is to help you tackle that essential first step to apologetics and evangelization, getting people to listen with an open mind. Even our best witness can bounce right off folks like these if we don't prepare the way first, breaking down barriers and leaving minds and souls free to encounter the truth. I'll give you evidence and arguments and step-by-step strategies based on asking the right questions to help them overcome their obstacles and make a straight path for the Lord. Order your copy of Prepare the Way today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Hi, this is Trent Horn, and you've probably heard me explain Catholicism to non-Catholic callers on the radio or engage opponents in formal public debates. I've always hoped these interactions would show people how to graciously defend and share our faith, but they're not enough. That's why I've created a weekly podcast that will help Catholics answer the toughest objections against our faith. Every episode of the Council of Trent will provide listeners with a conversation roadmap that will help them share their faith with anyone. Keep in mind that I hate boring lectures. These podcasts will contain entertaining, informative, and practical explanations of the faith, as well as interviews with the best Catholic writers and speakers in the world today. Visit TrentHornPodcast.com today to find out how you can subscribe to my new podcast. That's TrentHornPodcast.com.
Is the Church wrong on contraception? In a culture that worships the pursuit of sexual pleasure, the Catholic Church's teaching on contraception can seem archaic and unintelligible. Its critics say it's outdated, theologically unfounded, and even harmful. And even faithful Catholics can have difficulty explaining this moral teaching. Catholic Answers is out to change all of that. That's why we've just released Trent Horn's dynamic new DVD, The Case Against Contraception. Using scripture, papal and magisterial teachings, natural law, and new insights provided by social science and medicine, Trent puts forward a compelling case for Catholic teachings with his trademark charity and persuasive graciousness. Be prepared to give a defense. Order your copy of The Case Against Contraception today by calling 1-888-291-8000 291-8000, logging on to the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. As promised, this hour we talk about devotion to Mary. 888-318-7884 is the number. If you have a question about devotion to Mary, what Catholics mean by it, what it means in practical terms to be devoted to Mary, you are welcome to call 888-318-7884. And our guest this hour is Father Sebastian Walsh, a Norbertine canon of the Abbey of St. Michael in the Diocese of Orange. That means he is of the same monastery that our chaplain, Father Hugh Barber, is. Father Walsh is the professor of philosophy for the seminary program. He completed his studies at St. Thomas Aquinas College here in California. We always like to mention that, give St. Thomas Aquinas its plug for successfully turning out very fine people, a bunch of whom work here at Catholic Answers as well. He continued his studies at the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C., got a license in philosophy, and later went to the Pontifical University of St. Thomas in Rome. That's the Angelicum, where he received a master's in sacred theology and a doctorate in philosophy, and therefore he is ready to speak with you about Mary. Father Sebastian Walsh, thank you for being with us.
Thank you. My pleasure. Always good to talk to you, Cy.
So when we say devotion to Mary, are we talking about the same thing as just honoring Mary?
That's a good question. The two are obviously interlinked, devotion and honor, but strictly speaking, there's a difference in definition. St. Thomas Aquinas says that devotion is a certain promptitude or readiness of will to be at the service of someone. So if we're devoted to God, then we're ready and prompt to be at the service of God and divine things. And if we have a devotion to Mary, we're ready and prompt to be at her service. So that's devotion, as opposed to honor, which involves really witnessing to the excellence of someone. Now, obviously, if there's someone you're devoted to, your very service is in some way, your devotion is in some way a witness to their excellence and their goodness.
Right.
And so the two of them obviously go together. So we talk about devotion to Mary, honoring Mary. The two of them go hand in hand.
Again, 888-318-7884, the number 888-318-7884. Father Sebastian Walsh, our guest, we're talking about devotion to Mary. So, all right, so I know that there will be people listening for whom that idea of devotion to Mary is going to sound an awful lot like worshiping Mary. And do we worship Mary?
That's a good question. So in modern English, the word worship means an honor, a specific kind of honor which is paid exclusively to God. Okay? And so in modern English, we wouldn't say, no, Catholics don't worship Mary in modern English. And the Greeks, they made a distinction, and that vocabulary came all the way into the Latin vocabulary between something called latria and dulia. Latria was the honor which was appropriate to God, and dulia was an honor or service which was appropriate to a creature, but someone of excelling goodness or excellence. And so the Church has always taught we offer latria only to God, and to the saints, for example, we offer dulia, and to Mary, there's a special type of dulia, a special type of honor, which is called hyperdulia. It's kind of super dulia, super honor, which is offered precisely because of her close affinity to God. She is the mother of God, and so there's a special affinity. Now, it's important to keep something in mind. I was very precise when I said in modern English, we do not use the word worship to signify the honor given to Mary or the saints. But that's because the language has changed. If you look at older English texts, the word worship was more or less equivalent to the modern word honor is today.
Oh, okay.
So if you go and you look at an old text, like an old hymnal from 100 or 200 years ago, you'll see things like, or a theology text that'll say, we worship Mary, or, there's a daily sing to Mary is a little hymn that says, all her feasts, her actions worship. And that's because the Old English word meant honor. And a sign of that is we still have leftovers from that in Great Britain. In the United States, we call a judge or a magistrate, we call them your honor. But if you go to Great Britain, you call them your worship. Your worship, a bishop or a judge or a magistrate will be called your worship, because in Old English, it just meant your honor. So very often what happens is that Catholics today will say, well, we don't worship Mary and we never have worshiped Mary. And then a Protestant, an ultra Protestant will bring out an old text that says, see, it says here, this old English text, it says that you worship Mary. But that's because the vocabulary has changed. A similar change is happening right now. This is a little bit of a pet peeve. With regard to the word man, in the liturgical text now, the word man is being purged so that man is only used in modern liturgical texts to signify males of our species.
Right.
But in ancient texts and older texts, and even texts, as far back as 20 years ago, man always referred to male and female together. We always say that, God created man in his own image, and what we mean is male and female, both men and women. And the United States Declaration of Independence says that all men are created equal. Well, 200 years from now, or even 100 years from now, people are going to look at that and they're going to think, oh, well, it was sexist back then because they only thought men were created equal. They thought women weren't included or something like that. And that's just not true. It's the word is changing its meaning. And that's the danger of changing the meanings of important philosophical and theological terms, that you cut the roots out from under you, and you cut the roots with regard to ancient documents and texts, and then it causes all sorts of confusion. So worship, man, words like that are changing their meanings, unfortunately. And I try my best to always say, no, man means, it includes male and female, but in modern English, the word worship has been used only exclusively to refer to the honor due to God.
And certainly it's the case that these words and phrases are changing much more quickly now because of the mass media.
Yes.
We live in a mass media environment. So what used to take centuries will now be accomplished in decades.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, just think of words like marriage today and how they've changed, or gender, how they've changed. Those are certainly the result of kind of social engineering programs for political aims, but here we are.
Fair enough. 888-318-7884, the number. We're talking about devotion to Mary with Father Sebastian Walsh. Your calls are welcome. 888-318-7884. Okay, so with that kind of caveat about the changing of the word worship in English, still in Greek, the words dulia and latria always meant two different things, and dulia was reserved to God. But
no, latria.
Excuse me, latria. I beg your pardon. Yeah,
dulia.
Latria was reserved to God. So that gives us a clarification of what the ancient practice of the church has always been in regard to Mary, the saints, or God. But why do we bother to honor and have devotion to Mary in the first place? Is that really in the Bible? Could you trace that to the Bible?
Absolutely. There's multiple reasons why we should have both honor and devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary. The first reason, and perhaps the simplest reason, is because as Christians, we are bound to imitate Christ. And Jesus had devotion towards his mother, and Jesus honored his mother, because we read that the fourth commandment was honor your father and your mother. And obviously, Jesus kept all the commandments perfectly. So if Jesus himself said he kept the commandments, and if one of the commandments is to honor your mother, and Mary was his mother, it says in the scriptures, therefore Jesus clearly honored Mary, and we should imitate Christ. We should imitate what he does. And it's striking because even the scriptures themselves draw a parallel between God's divine paternity over Christ and Mary's divine maternity over Christ. Think of the episode of the baptism in the Jordan, when the voice of the Father was heard, right? What did the Father say? The Father said, "This is my beloved Son, hear him." And then, at the wedding feast of Cana, what does Jesus' mother say? She says, "Do whatever he tells you." Practically the same advice from Jesus' father and Jesus' mother. Hear him, listen to him, do whatever he tells you. So that's a sign that you've got kind of a unity between Jesus' parents, his divine father and his human mother.
Lots and lots of calls for you, Father. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back to take those calls. We're talking about devotion to Mary with Father Sebastian Walsh on Catholic Answers Live. If you have a question, there are 3 lines open right now, 888-318-7884. Back with your calls for Father Walsh right after this.
There's only one Catholic Answers Live.
We have a big problem. Our culture is dying, and souls are in danger of being lost. The answer is conversion to Jesus Christ in His church. St. Paul Street Evangelization is a Catholic organization, and we have hundreds of teams spreading the good news throughout the country. But we need your help. The harvest is great, but the laborers are few. Find out more and get involved today at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
I went to Las Vegas years and years ago for one of these cable shows. And I was shocked to see all these old ladies in their 70s and 80s getting off that plane, running for a slot machine. You don't have a chance to win. They're all fixed. I know, my uncle used to have slot machines.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Our magnificent Monday continues. Our conversation this hour is with Father Sebastian Walsh, Norbertine priest and philosopher and theologian, and we're talking about devotion to Mary. If you've ever had a question about devotion to Mary, or if you want to challenge us a little bit on it, you are welcome to call 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. So you were saying, Father, that there is a biblical basis for honoring Mary and being devoted to her in Christ's own honoring of her, because he said he followed all the commandments, and one of the commandments is honor your father and mother. So he honored her, so we should too.
Yes.
So would you say that is the firm foundation on which we can rest our idea that we honor Mary?
Absolutely. That's one of the firm foundations. But then we also want to see the other reasons why the scriptures would indicate that we should honor Mary. For example, Mary is a mother of God. The scriptures say that. And not only that, but she's a mother of God by her free choice. And that's something that means that she gave us Jesus by her free choice. She's in some way a cause of the incarnation, and therefore of all the greatest gifts to us. The scriptures also teach us that she is the mother of us by grace. She's our spiritual mother, and we can get into that. You see that in John 19. You see it in Revelations 12:1, for example, a number of places. And then finally, we see that Mary at the foot of the cross cooperated with her son in our redemption. And because of that, we owe her a special honor and devotion as well. So all the benefits we've received, not only should we imitate Christ, who honored her, but also because of the many benefits we've received. We've received Christ through her. We are her own spiritual children. And also, and finally, we've received the benefit of our salvation in some way through her cooperation as she was there at the foot of the cross. And each of those has a biblical foundation, but I think it's enough just to say each of those things. And maybe in the calls I can get into the very details of the different biblical foundations for those reasons.
We will get to those calls shortly. So 888-318-7884 is the number if you would like to get your question in. 888-318-7884. Father, I want to just step to the side here for a quick second, because I see Tim Ryland. He walks by and he's got a brand new magazine out. Catholic Answers magazine.
Hi.
And Catholic Answers magazine is probably the finest Catholic magazine in the universe. We have statistics on that, so it may well be the finest cat. And this month, it's really cool. It's The Early Church Was the Catholic Church, special issue on the theme of our annual conference. Congratulations. Right. It's beautiful, Tim.
Well, congratulate all the wonderful authors that always contribute. I just put it together. But we have a lot of great information here, and none of it covers the same ground. We have a couple of people writing who will be speaking, Jimmy and Trent. But we also have some other great early church scholars, Mike Aquilina, James Papandrea, Gary Machuda, And they're all writing stuff that you're not going to hear at the conference. There's more early church stuff here than you can shake a stick at, as my father used to say.
Yeah, so you could get the magazine and go to the conference, and you'd get tons of information on the early church, and none of it would overlap.
You know what, Cy? There's going to be when the people show up at the conference, this issue will be in their
bag.
In their bag, so they may just bail at that point and just give up. Read the magazine.
They'll be like, the magazine is so good. Why bother with the conference?
I'm afraid that's what's going to happen, but I hope not.
Well, wonderful articles in here, books that almost made it into the Bible, women in the early church, using the fathers to build bridges with Protestants. And the one that grabbed me is you have one called The Early Church Was Catholic and Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Why? What does that mean?
Well, it's by Trent Horn, one of our apologists, and he's addressing the great apostasy idea that very quickly the church, the Catholic Church, went away from what Christ founded it at.
That never happened.
I don't believe it happened, or I wouldn't be sitting here.
I see. So it's Catholic and Christian, meaning yes, it was Christian from it, but it always had the mark of
always Catholic
on it.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Good article.
And so it's almost like if you were to go back in time and hang with St. Paul, for example, it certainly would not be exactly like what a Catholic experience is today, but it would be very much like that as far as the Sunday worship and the breaking of the bread and the celebration of the Eucharist and baptism and all that stuff.
We also have these nice little bite-sized, page-long, 4 or 5 of them sprinkled throughout. When Protestants quote church fathers against the church, they tend to pick and choose and cherry pick. And Sean McAfee, who's another one of our fine authors,
he does a great job.
Yeah, just says the things he's run into as an apologist. Here's what Protestants tend to quote to us from the fathers. Here's why it's out of context. Here's about how to reply. So it's very helpful and very bite-sized, fun to read.
You can get Catholic Answers Magazine. You can become a subscriber to Catholic Answers Magazine by going to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com, CatholicAnswersMagazine.com. You won't be sorry you did. It's just chock full of great stuff every issue. You do a great job, Tim.
Well, thank you, Cy. So do you. And Father, so do you. Every day.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Wow. You got the stamp of approval. I think that was on your priesthood from Tim Ryland. He was approving
from your lips to God's ears.
Yeah, amen. Thanks, Tim.
Okay, thank you.
CatholicAnswersMagazine.com is where you can go. Let's go to some calls for Father. We're talking about devotion to Mary. It is a very Catholic thing, a very Christian thing to be devoted to Mary. And if you have questions about it, or if you want to give a little challenge to Father, you are welcome to call 888-318-7884. We'll start with Stephen in Dayton, Ohio, one of my top 10 favorite Ohio cities. Stephen, your question for Father.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. So I'm currently an Anglican, but I'm about to start taking the RCIA classes. Now, I was just wondering, is Marian devotion necessary for salvation? And if so, why?
That's an excellent question. In fact, St. Louis de Montfort, in his really good book called True Devotion to Mary, answers that exact question. I recommend you read that book. It's a classic. It's been approved by the church. It's a really wonderful, excellent book on Marian devotion. And the answer in short is yes, precisely because Mary was a necessary component in God's plan for our salvation. It would be a little bit like this. If I were to say to you, is it necessary for your salvation to honor your father and your mother? Not everyone else's, but your father and your mother. I think you would agree, well, yeah, the scriptures tell me I have to honor my father and my mother. And why? Because they gave you life. And therefore, there's a special relationship that you bear to your father and your mother. And in order to be rightly ordered, to be in a right relationship with God, you have to have a right relationship of honor towards your own parents because they gave you life. Well, if it's true that Mary gave us life, supernatural life, first she gave us Christ himself, and then she really is in some way a source of grace for us, and I can talk about that in a minute, some evidence from Scripture for that, then it would follow that just like we have to, for our salvation, honor our earthly father and mother, we also have to have honor and devotion towards Mary. Does that make sense as far as the argument?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Sure.
Well,
and let me go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to ask Stephen, because you're coming into the church from Anglicanism. You're coming into full communion with the Catholic Church. Is that a struggle for you, Stephen? This Marian stuff?
No, this is one of the things that brought me to the Catholic Church.
Okay, fair enough. Father, you were going to say.
Beautiful. Yeah, a beautiful text to look at is the first 2 chapters of St. Luke's Gospel. There, in the early chapters of St. Luke's Gospel, you see a parallel between Jesus and John. So you have the Annunciation for John, Annunciation for Jesus, Conception of John, Conception of Jesus. Then you've got the birth of John, birth of Jesus, early life, public ministry John, early life, public ministry of Jesus. You see a parallel. But there's also a parallel between Mary and Zechariah. The angel Gabriel announces something to Zechariah. Zechariah asks a question. Then afterwards, Zechariah goes to his home. His wife Elizabeth conceives. Then Zechariah names the child, and then there's a canticle at the end. Well, Mary's exactly paralleling that. The angel Gabriel sent to her to make an annunciation. She asks a question, though it's an importantly different question, because she responds with faith, unlike Zechariah. Then she goes to the house of Elizabeth. And then after that, she sings a canticle. So you see all the different parallels. What is Zechariah doing when he goes to his house? He is bringing about the natural life of his son John. He comes and he has relations with Elizabeth so that his natural life will come to be. But when Mary comes to Elizabeth, when she speaks, John leaps in her womb for joy. And we knew from the angel's annunciation that John would be sanctified from his mother's womb. So Elizabeth is filled with the Holy Spirit. John is filled with the Holy Spirit at her word. So she comes to bring supernatural life. So there's the first evidence. Immediately after the incarnation, after giving, so to speak, us the Creator in the form of the God-made man, after consenting to the incarnation, the first thing Mary does is she brings grace to someone else, to John the Baptist and to Elizabeth, in a very special way. It's a fantastic text, and it shows you how even the very early first authors of Scripture saw Mary as truly being our mother in the order of grace. So if that's true, and grace is more important than our natural life, then it follows we owe greater honor and devotion to Mary than we do even to our own parents. So anyway, I hope that helps.
Okay, Stephen?
Yeah, that really helps.
Thank you very, very much, Stephen. Appreciate that call. We're talking about devotion to Mary. We are talking with Father Sebastian Walsh, and up next is Nate in Grove City, Pennsylvania. Nate, your question for Father.
Hello. First off, Father, I just want to say thanks for taking my call, and it's good to talk to you again. I met Father...
Oh, thank you, Nate.
I think I met you, in July, so about a month ago at Thomas Aquinas, so that was really nice.
Oh, wow.
But it's good to talk to you again. Anyway, my question is... So my question is about consecration to Mary. My family made a consecration to Mary a few years ago, partially following through Louis de Montfort's True Devotion to Mary. So I have some friends that they're Catholic, and they say that they are very devoted to Mary and that they love Mary a lot, but that they're just not willing to make a consecration. So I was just wondering if you could explain the difference between being greatly devoted to Mary and loving Mary, and actually being willing to make a consecration to her, and what would be the point of being devoted?
Yes, that's a really good question. So again, a good reference for the people who are out there just who are interested in reading more about this is to actually read St. Louis de Montfort's True Devotion to Mary. Towards the end of that book, he has a section on Marian consecration. Now, he says that devotion to Mary, honoring Mary, is necessary for salvation. He doesn't say consecration to Mary is. He says that consecration is a special form of devotion. It's the peak, or kind of the greatest form of devotion that you can have for Our Lady, is to consecrate yourself to Our Lady, okay? And to place yourself, in a certain sense, into her trusting hands. Now, where does the theology of consecration come from? Well, in the New Testament, in Jesus's high priestly prayer in the Gospel of St. John, Jesus says that he consecrates himself to the Father. Right, so there's a special consecration there, and from the Latin etymology, it means to set aside and make holy. Okay, con, and then sacra, holy, right? To set aside for a holy purpose. And so when we consecrate ourselves to someone, we separate ourselves, and we make a specific intention to always remain in that relationship of holiness to that person. Okay, so there's a special setting aside for holy purposes, and it's an act of trust. It's basically saying, Mary, now I see exactly your role in my salvation, your role in the salvation of the world and of the church, and so I can entrust myself to you in your hands in such a way that I offer to you everything good that I do. I know that by passing those things through your hands back to Jesus, that they'll have greater value and merit.
Nate, we have to say thanks for the call. I hope that was helpful to you. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more on Devotion to Mary with Father Sebastian Walsh from the Norbertine Abbey just north of us here. 888-318-7884, the number. Back with more calls for Father right after this.
Catholic Answers Live.
In his new audio presentation, The Very First Fathers, apologist Jimmy Akin takes you on a tour of the earliest Christian writings outside the New Testament. From the most famous figures and most notable works to those lesser known but no less important, this pivotal time in the development of the early church is revealed in fascinating detail. Jimmy shows how, even in the first century after the resurrection, it was necessary to defend and explain truths that are still under attack today, such as the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist and the perpetual virginity of Mary. The Very First Fathers is a compelling look at the dawn of the Christian age and edifying listening for anyone who wants to understand and defend the full truth of Catholicism. Order your copy of The Very First Fathers today by calling 1-888-291-8000, logging on to the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Love and beauty. As a little girl, Dawn Eden Goldstein knew she wanted those things, that in them, somehow, she would find God. Over the years, as a rock journalist, she moved among some of popular music's best-known artists, straining to capture that transcendent love and beauty in every note and lyric. In Sunday Will Never Be the Same, Dawn recounts her spiritual journey in beautifully wrought detail, mixing powerful accounts of trauma, healing, and epiphany with funny anecdotes from inside the music scene. It is the rare conversion story that delights as it inspires, amuses as it edifies, and ultimately lays before the reader a lived testimony to the transforming grace of Christ. Order your copy of Sunday Will Never Be the Same by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Hi, this is Dr. David Anders. What's stopping you from becoming a Catholic? Let's talk about it on Call to Communion tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio. Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. There is a bunch of calls waiting because we're talking about devotion to Mary, and Father Sebastian Walsh is here and put those two things together, and lots of people want to dial that phone. 888-31-TRUTH is the number, but I have to tell you, all the lines are full at the moment, so you have to hang on till one opens up. Father Sebastian Walsh is a Norbertine priest of St. Michael's Abbey here in Orange County, California. You should look them up online. They're building a brand new Abbey Church, and it's a thing of beauty.
And we hope one day a high school too. So pray for that to our callers. Pray for we can start building a high school one day soon. So
well, you have a high school though, right?
We do, but we're going to have to close that high school and then restart it up because we don't have enough to. We need to build the whole high school in the new place. So pray for that intention.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, fair enough, Father. Mary in Lincoln, Nebraska, listening on the Great Spirit Catholic Radio, is up next. Mary, your question for Father.
Yes, thank you,
for taking my call. Father, I'm a convert, and I remember when the whole subject of Mary came up, I really felt cheated, in a sense, that my church didn't talk about it. But that being said, I struggle with getting to that point of devotion, if that makes sense. And,
yes.
I have people say to me, I have a son that's just entered the seminary, and they say, Mary understands when you're anxious. Go to Mary. And beyond the rosary, if that's not how you were traditionally raised to pray, meditative, how do you get there?
Yes. Okay. Well, I think a couple of things are going to be really helpful. One of the first things to do is just to recognize this is God's will for us, and it improves our spiritual life. If you're convinced of that, and that this is really God's will for us to love and be devoted to his mother that way, then it'll stimulate your own devotion. It'll get you there. So one time, I'll tell you a story, and I hope this helps. One time, a friend of mine who was not practicing as a Catholic, he had left the faith, and he was having an argument about Marian devotion. He complained that his grandmother had all these images of the Blessed Virgin Mary in her house and only like 1 or 2 images of Jesus. So he was saying that it seemed like that his grandmother loved Mary more than Jesus. And I said, no, when we love Mary, not only are we simultaneously loving Jesus, it's not an opposition, but God so wants us or encourages us to love him and to go to him through Mary that he actually gives us more if we ask through Mary than if we ask directly. Surely if we ask directly, he'll answer our prayers, and he wants to answer our prayers. If we speak to him directly, he's not offended at all. He loves that. But he loves it even more when we go to him through Mary and also through the saints, but especially through his mother. And here's why. If we receive the gifts of grace and salvation all just directly from God, then in the next life, we'll just have God to thank. But if God also prefers, normally he wants to give us the gifts of grace and salvation through one another, and especially through his Blessed Mother, through whom he gave us his own Son. Then, not only will we be grateful to God, because we'll see that he's the original source of all that grace and all those gifts and our salvation, but we'll also love one another more, because we'll see that we also were somehow involved and responsible for communicating those gifts of grace and salvation. So in the next life, we'll love God just the same, but we'll love each other more. And what father doesn't want his children to love each other as much as possible? So it's a win-win situation from God. If he gives us gifts of grace and salvation through Mary, through the other saints, even through one another, then our love for one another will be increased, and our love for him will not be diminished in the slightest. And so that's why God in his wisdom prefers to communicate graces through Mary, especially first and foremost through her, and then after that through the other saints. So that's really important to see why God in his plan would want to do that. So it's his will, and he really is so much more generous to us whenever we ask something through Mary. Jesus himself said that my disciples, those who believe in me, will do the works that I do and greater works still. And if that's true, if Jesus' words are true, as we see, for example, in the Acts of the Apostles, they came true with St. Peter, who healed people with his shadow and converted 5,000 people in a single homily. How much more is it going to be true about his mother? She'll do greater things than Jesus, precisely because God wants to encourage us through the promise of those greater gifts to go to him through Mary. I hope that helps.
Does that help you, Mary?
It does. I guess I've never really thought about the fact that maybe my hang-up is I feel like I was cheating Jesus a little bit, because it's all so new.
Yes, fair enough. That's fair enough.
Yeah. He loves it. It's a family affair. Jesus likes us to be together with his family. He doesn't feel cheated when we're together with him and his mother. So,
Mary, I'm going to leave it there because we do have lots and lots of calls for Father. We're talking about devotion to Mary with Father Sebastian Walsh. Andy in Illinois, listening to EWTN on Sirius XM Satellite Radio, Channel 130. You are next. Andy, your question.
Yes, thanks for taking my call. I have a friend who doesn't quite get the phrasing of the Memorare. As opposed to
Our life, our sweetness, and our hope. Is that what the problem is?
Well, no, not that. It's the fact that, and if I could say the whole thing just so I can get it out, we can go over it. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought the intercession, was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, I fly unto thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my mother. To thee I come, before thee I stand, sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. Amen. It does not reference Mary praying to God.
Oh, okay. So what about that, Father? Does Mary have power on her own to do these things? Is that what it implies, or how do we make sense of the Memorare?
Yeah, that's a very good question there. Let's put it this way. First of all, the Church has never taught that Mary has any power of her own, right? And all the places in Scripture where she talks about herself as the humble handmaid of the Lord, as someone who is nothing of herself, right? And the Lord is the one who's raised her up. So first of all, just to explain that the Church has always taught that Mary's all her glory, all her goodness, all her power comes completely from God. She's compared to God, she's nothing, but she is something in relation to us as an instrument to God. Now, when Jesus asked his mother of something, when Jesus asked for, some food or for some help or whatever else when he was a child, he didn't make reference to God's power during that, right? In other words, the fact that when we pray to Mary, we speak to her just like a child does to its mother, that doesn't mean just because we don't make an explicit reference to God in our prayer that therefore Mary is the object of our prayer without God, or somehow to the exclusion of God or something like that, any more than when Jesus asking his mother for things as a child would have excluded God his Father in that prayer or in that request made to his own mother. So that's the first thing. However, I will add this. There is a little phrase, O Mother of the Word incarnate. It says it specifically in the prayer. And that indicates precisely where her dignity comes from. She's a mother of the Word incarnate. And therefore, because she's a mother of the Word incarnate, that's where she has all her glory from, all of her dignity. So in some way, the prayer does implicitly make reference to the fact that she herself goes to Christ or brings us to Christ. So I don't know. I hope that helps. And it's a very ancient prayer. He should know that's from the early church, and the early Christians never saw any difficulty with praying that way to Mary. Just so I don't know the exact date of the Memorare, but I'm guessing it's in the 300s or 200s, a very early prayer. So.
Andy, thanks very, very much. And it's important to remember the early church was the Catholic Church, by the way. Oh, wait, that's the theme of Catholic Answers magazine and our conference next month. Little shameless plug. Let's go to, who is up next? Todd in Jacksonville, Florida. Sorry, Todd, I had a little trouble reading it. Your question for Father.
Yes, hi, Stel. Hi, Cy, and Father Sebastian. Thank you for your ministry and your vocation. I appreciate it very much.
Sure.
My question is, and I also appreciate your answer to Mary earlier on the show. It gave me a lot to think about. But my question is, I'm having some difficulty discussing charitably with fellow parishioners who seem to put devotion to Mary even above Jesus. Much so that it's important to show up a half hour early to Mass to say the Rosary. But if you can't stay for all of Mass, that's okay. It got to a point when I was speaking with one gentleman that he actually accused me of being a blasphemer because I was saying that, whose body and blood is up there on the altar? That's not Mary. That's Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just struggling with how to wrap my mind around the rest of that and how to charitably converse.
Got it.
Okay. I would say, again, the classic text of reference here is St. Louis de Montfort's True Devotion to Mary, he has a little section in there on false devotion to Mary. He talks about that, and he has 7 different ways in which people can have false devotion to Mary. And any form of devotion to Mary, which actually is to the exclusion or somehow to the detriment of devotion to Christ, is false devotion. He mentions that, okay? So that might be a reference text that you can give or something like that. Obviously, the church has always taught that that attendance at Mass is a greater good. The Mass is the greatest prayer. It's greater than the Rosary, no doubt. Now, obviously, if you can't go to Mass, say the Rosary, and if you can do both, do both. Absolutely. But going to Mass is devotion to Mary, and I think that's what they need to realize. The problem is not that they're leaving Mass early and coming to Rosary early or something like that. The problem is that they don't see the Mass as devotion to Mary as well. Our Lady is present at the Mass, and Our Lady did not leave Jesus' side. When he was on the cross, she was there. She was offering her son in her own heart there. And so Mary's together with every priest at every Mass, so to speak, together with the priest offering Christ. And so Mary would never have left the side of her son on the cross early. And so you should tell those people who are leaving Mass early that they're failing in their devotion to Mary and to Jesus in that regard. So and I know it's hard to be. Sometimes you have to be very patient and charitable. And the very fact that they want to say the Rosary and they love Our Lady, those are all good signs. And I would just be very patient and just say, remember that that true devotion to Mary always enhances and completes our relationship with Jesus.
Todd, thank you very, very much for that. It is something that requires maintenance, our maintaining a proper kind of I don't know if balance. Balance is not the right word, but proper emphasis on so that we don't misplace the Eucharist, so to speak. That we take it out of the central place in our life as Catholics. That we must always do. Keep Christ in the Eucharist at the center of it.
That's right.
Fair enough, Todd. Thank you very much for that helpful call. Father Sebastian Walsh is our guest, 888-318-7884, the number. Father, I am detecting some devotion in you to St. Louis de Montfort. You mentioned,
I love
you mentioned him.
We have a confrere named Frater Louis, who's named after St. Louis de Montfort, and he's very holy too. But I love St. Louis de Montfort, and I owe to him very much of my own understanding of Mary. True revelation, true disclosure, full disclosure. The thing I had the hardest time with when I became a Catholic was Marian devotion, and I needed to learn that. And I learned most of it through St. Louis de Montfort, and he's the one who really got me to understand more and more perfectly how important it is to have devotion to Our Lady.
Father Sebastian Walsh is our guest. Devotion to Mary is our topic. We'll be right back with more of your calls right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Hello, everyone. This is country music artist Colin Ray. Do what I do and keep it right here on Catholic Answers Live.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
The leading Catholic voices are on EWTN Radio.
Part of the success we've had on the world over, I attribute to certainly my relationship with Mother Angelica and her teaching me early on that when you sit with someone, you talk to them, you share with them, and you create an environment where they will tell you things they wouldn't tell anyone else.
The World Over with Raymond Arroyo, Thursday night, 8 Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Oh man, so many calls. I'm just going to go really quick here. Christine in Fort Wayne, Indiana, you are up next. Your question for Father Sebastian Walsh.
Yes, hi, Father. Thank you for taking my call. So
You're welcome.
My question is I have heard that people can consecrate their child to Mary, and I wanted to know how a parent does that. Are there age limits, and what is a good resource that I could get more information on that?
Oh, that's a good question. The consecration of a child has its roots in the Old Testament. For example, Samson was consecrated from his birth, from his mother's womb. And there's a number of places in the Old Testament where it talked about a child being dedicated or consecrated to God, either before it was born or after. For example, Samuel was brought to the temple and consecrated to God. And Mary herself was consecrated to God when she was a little girl in the presentation in the temple. So it has firm roots in the theology of the scriptures. And any parent can consecrate their children to God. They should do it together with the other spouse. In other words, if possible, you and your husband together should say a prayer of consecration of a child to Our Lady. Okay? Saint Norbert, the founder of our order, was consecrated to Our Lady. Isn't that beautiful? By his mother and father. So anyway, now as far as I know, there's no set prayer in the church for consecrating a child to the Virgin Mary that I know of. Now, I suspect things exist out there. There's probably several saints who have written a consecration prayer for a child, a consecration to Our Lady. But what I would recommend in the absence of that is that you read the consecration prayer of either St. Louis de Montfort or St. Maximilian Kolbe and offer that prayer in the name of your child. So you read that prayer and then you make that prayer on behalf of your child. And it's a little bit like baptizing your own child. You baptize, you respond in the name of the child until the child's old enough. And then the child themselves can ratify that consecration later on in life. So I would recommend that if you can't find a prayer authored by saints specifically for the sake of consecrating a child. But you can do it in the womb, even as early as, as soon as you know that you're pregnant. In fact, I often tell pregnant mothers who have many miscarriages to consecrate their child to the Blessed Virgin Mary, because I know Our Lady would never, ever let a child die without grace if a child is consecrated to her. So you can do it even from the womb.
Christina, I hope that was helpful. As I said, there's many calls, so I'm just going to keep moving. We go now to Brian in Cleveland, Ohio, listening on the EWTN app. Brian, your question for Father.
Yes, thank you very much for taking my call, Father Sebastian. I'm calling about, I just want to say my wife and I are devoted to the Blessed Virgin Mary. We were married on the feast of Our Lady, or Immaculate Heart of Mary. I apologize.
Oh,
but
beautiful.
My question is, it's not really a question. I'm curious how Mary is the co-mediatrix. I've been curious about that and understand that a little better.
Very good. Let me speak to that. So Mary is both co-redemptrix and co-mediatrix. Those are two dogmas of the church that have not yet been defined as dogmas. I believe they will be soon. And they stand in an order to one another. Mary cooperated with Christ in our redemption, and because she did, and because through the redemption all grace has come to us, then Mary also is co-mediatrix with Christ. So let me explain. If we go back to the book of Genesis, we hear that Eve, at the foot of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, was tempted by the devil to pluck the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now fast forward, and we're at the cross. And there's Mary, a virgin like Eve, and all the people around her, we read in Luke's gospel, are saying to Jesus, "Come down, save yourself, save yourself, save yourself." I'm sure the devil was also tempting Mary to make the same request. And if Mary had asked Jesus to come down from the cross, I'm not so sure that he would have stayed up there. But she never asked, because she refused to pluck the fruit of her womb from the tree of the knowledge of man's evil and God's goodness. The cross becomes the new tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And Mary, by refusing to ask Jesus to come down, by refusing to pluck the fruit of her womb from that tree, cooperated intimately with our salvation. The new Adam was obedient and stayed on the cross. The new Eve was obedient, reversing the sin of the original Adam and the original Eve. So that's how Mary cooperated in a special way with our redemption. And in a certain sense, she became a necessary element, just like Eve was a necessary element in the original sin. Mary was a necessary element in reversing the original sin. Then, because all of our graces come through the passion of Christ, the death of Christ is what won us our redemption, and Mary cooperated intimately with that, she also now becomes a co-mediatrix for all the graces that come to us through Christ's passion. So Mary has kind of a double reason. First, because she consented by her free choice to the incarnation. Then, because she consented by her free choice to our Lord's passion. For that reason, her act of will, which were, so to speak, essential to those graces that came to us, she becomes now the mediatrix of all grace. I hope that helps.
Brian, this is kind of a big one. It's a big deal for a lot of people. I wonder, does that help? Does that address your kind of questions, or maybe you have concerns about it?
No, I think that kind of addresses it. It's you try to get your arms around it as a layperson, and it's pretty difficult. But that helped out a lot.
Very good. All right.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks very much. We're talking about Marian devotion. We're talking with Father Sebastian Walsh, a Norbertine priest from St. Michael's Abbey up the road from us. Father, you talked about your conversion to the Catholic faith, and
yes.
that Marian devotion was one of the things that, or maybe you said the thing that was hardest for you to kind of accommodate yourself to, or
yes.
if that's fair enough.
Yes.
So we actually run across that a great deal, and I kind of would like, in your words, as a person who is a convert to the Catholic faith, like to tell us something about, maybe to give the invitation to those who don't have a devotion to Mary.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I'm very happy to do that. So, when I first came to the faith, having come from a Protestant background, I really was frightened. My view towards Mary was a kind of an attitude of fear, largely because of prejudices and misinformation about what I thought. I'm going to see if this little thing's going. Of what I thought was happening. I thought that Mary was being set up as opposed to Christ. I thought all those different things. And what I realized once I got closer to Jesus, especially in the Eucharist, I realized how tender his love was for his mother, and how it was impossible for me to put on the heart of Christ without having a tender love for his mother. We have to have the mind of Christ, we have to have the heart of Christ. And without having that mind and heart of Christ, we simply can't be Christians. And when I realized that every person of the Trinity had this unique and intimate relationship with Mary, I realized then it was impossible for me to live, and deeply ungrateful for me to live without having this intimate relationship with her as well. And once I made that realization, it made things a lot easier. And since my own mother passed away, she's been for me a beautiful, loving mother. So I don't know if that helps. I hope it helps.
It certainly does. It certainly does, Father. So for those who are afraid, I guess the message is, don't be afraid, that this is putting on the mind and the heart of Christ, not just the mind of Christ, but the heart of Christ, who loves his own mother. So we do hear a lot of, I suppose there are devotions that come with promises, or and sometimes to the untrained ear, maybe even sometimes to the trained ear, it can sometimes come across as a little superstitious. Do you ever have concerns about that?
Yeah. Again, superstition is something that belongs to false devotion to Mary, for sure. Superstition means either worshiping the wrong God or worshiping God in the wrong way. But what's really clear is that God wants us to worship him, to show him honor, to show him devotion, precisely by showing his mother devotion and honor. And that's very clear as we go through the scriptures for many of the reasons I've already given. So it can't be superstition if it's something that God himself intended. And again, going back to the theme of the conference, of the Catholic Answers Conference, the early church was filled with devotion to Mary. John the Evangelist took Mary into his home, and he was called the beloved disciple. How can we be beloved disciples of Christ unless we, like John, take Mary into our home And how can taking Mary into our home in any way be contrary to the will of Christ, who said to every one of his disciples from the cross, "Behold your mother"?
Father Sebastian Walsh, thank you so much for a wonderful hour. May we have your blessing before we go?
Per intercessionem Beata Maria Virginis et Omnium Sanctorum, benedictio Dei Omnipotentis, Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, descendat super vos et maniat semper.
Amen. Thank you very, very much, Father.
You're welcome. God bless you all.
And you too. We'll pray for the high school, and we'll see you for 2 hours of open forum tomorrow on Catholic Answers Live.